This is well. This one is In Defense of Love, Part 4. Oh, wait, you see how long my hair has gotten? It's been growing like mad. In Defense of Love, Summation. Joel, I just decided I was going to talk to you this time instead of trying to type it out, because typing sometimes it takes too long. And this I can do in like 10 minutes and then be done with it. For those who don't know, I've been having a debate with my friend Polycarp on the sinful or not sinful nature of gay marriage. I am of the opinion that gay marriage is not a sin. He is of the opinion that, of course, it is. Now, we started off this debate a little while back, and I kind of gave him an impossible challenge, which was to quote me directly from Jesus Christ a sermon on the sinfulness of gay marriage. I did this because I knew he could not, and so I wanted to kind of set the tone a little bit, draw the field, and then we've kind of gone back and forth a few times and had to define a couple terms. And actually, once we defined 2 terms, in my humble opinion, this debate was somewhat over. So, those 2 terms. First one was gay marriage. Basically, what we decided gay marriage meant is a legal and spiritual contract between 2 consenting adults of the same sex who love one another, which I think is really good. Now, the thing about it is, I won't say I cheated, but a little trick that I have, sometimes I hear stuff in my head, and whether or not it makes sense or not. And when I hear that definition, basically it's blah, 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 love one another. And that's really, this is the thing, I do this whole graph, and that was where the whole Tricaticus, Logicus, Philosophicus, Wittgenstein stuff came in, is because you have to have a better idea, I think, a more profound idea of what sin is in order to really look at some of the more difficult questions of our age, not through the lens of, admittedly, an incredibly insightful man who died 2,000 years ago. We've learned a lot since then, and I think we can use that to help define sin a little bit better than this concept of what you say here. I would define sin in that anything that misses the mark being God's order. If God calls yellow and we offer orange, then it is a sin. To place it in a biblical context, God calls for truth. Therefore, if we lie, we sin. Now, I like the second part a lot better because God calls for truth. That's kind of what God is. And also love, but there's a lot of words that can apply. I didn't really like your little, if God likes one color and you give him another, I don't like that, because I grew up in a family that, and not that they're not racist, but they had this weird theological belief that like black people were inherently evil. And it made no frickin' sense to me. I later studied the historical context of it, and it's like, okay, well, now I understand where that comes from. But it sat so wrong in my heart, so I just could never really buy into that religion. They had changed it later, but I mean, come on. So anyway, I don't really like your little color example. But when I talk about how the definition of gay marriage includes the word love, and specifically to love one another, that is, to me, on my graph, that model that I'm talking about, that love that's the infinite line, right? That's the perfect line. And when you combine anything with the perfect line, including what I said, what the whole point of my book is that, you know, infinity multiplied by 0 equals 1, because 1 is halfway between the 2. So that dividing line of 1, when looked at in the context of morality, is basically the dividing line between actions that are sinful, or shaitan, or forbidden, in a sense, and those that are good, or cool, or kosher, or whatever, you know, pick a word. So that's kind of the point of the whole graph. And when you have love one another in the definition of a term, the absolute worst it could possibly be, is a 1, which is fine. Now, you're saying, oh, well, what about the sodomy and the blowjobs and all that stuff that's bad and used to be, up until a few years ago, illegal in Texas, at least. Yeah, by the way, if you got a blowjob in Texas before, like 4 years ago, you're a criminal. I'm a criminal, obviously. So See, where was I? Oh yeah, blowjobs are great. Sodomy's kind of fun. I don't like it, but oh yeah, here it is. You're like, well, homosexual sex is a sinful act, and this is where I'd basically say this is where the two consenting adults comes in, because quite frankly, it's none of my business what two people do in their bedroom. Two people that love one another. Why is it any of my business? It's not any of my government's business. I don't really care about it, and to be quite frank, conceiving of homosexual acts kind of turns my stomach. I'll be honest with you. I like the ladies, personally, a lot. But it's just, and I know that people take that squeamishness of their own heart and think that that's what sin is. It's a good sense generally, but sometimes that simplistic sense of love is what leads to people thinking that they should be okay to love little kids, which is pedophilia, which is one of those things I made sure to specifically exclude from our conversation of gay marriage. Just like, pardon my French, but horse fucking. Horse fucking has no place in the gay marriage debate. Why do people keep trying to bring it up? They're small-minded, and they can't think very clearly. So, sorry, the whole horse fucking thing, really, it's just annoying. Bestiality, or, wow, people are just going to marry their dogs. Ugh, facepalm. So, anyway, Joel, I think after you agreed that love was part of the definition, and that I believe you kind of agreed with me about God's order and truth, and I would really highly recommend you work through the rest of Wittgenstein's stuff after I finish correcting it. But it's a pretty good book. There's a few people out there, when I read their stuff, it just sings. And Jesus is one of them, and that's why I brought that up and said, I don't think you guys quite get exactly what this guy was saying. He was a lot more into the love than he was on hating the fags. A lot more. Which, cost his life, but whatever. We all got to die anyway, someday. So I think that's kind of my point here, Joel. I woke up this morning again, like I said, like I replied to you the other day. Can't sleep. Got an answer in my head. It's got to jump out. The camera's a lot easier. I tell you, a lot easier than typing. Oh, by the way, your whole conversation in the Word of God and how you can't just write it on a page was great. I was going to play it. I've got like a minute left before I hit YouTube's limit, but yeah, I totally agree. Logic is not a one-sided endeavor. It's basically a relationship between two people agreeing what things mean. That logos is not, one person can't be logical. It takes two people. One person has to make a statement, the other has to say, yes, that makes sense. It's a dialectic. It's a cool word. But anyway, yeah, that's why you're right. It's words on a page. Nothing more. Thanks again. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you can take this in the spirit that is it. A little excited sometimes. I hope you can take this answer in the spirit it has been extended. And I would additionally, perhaps, request, Joel, that you do the same for me next time. Just get a camera. Makes it easier to talk. All right. Hasta luego, mi amigos.